Hello guys, it's been not a long time. I think I was posting too many videos, and maybe it's too much, and I wanted to post from time to time and probably just show small things I did instead of developing in front because those are long and maybe it's better to show some progress sometimes. Yeah, occasionally I can return to the opticode, whatever, or other stuff. It's a leisure. But I have been still, even since the last video, I have been still working on both, on the 3DO side and also a bit on the DOS side. And sometimes I move code from one to another. Now there are so many things I would like to do, especially on the DOS side here. And I'm gonna show you something I was doing. And do I have what then? Okay. Oh, this was the DJGPP. So first of all, on 3DO, I'm gonna run the emulation here. Is it built already? Let's go with sync. Bam. There are mistakes now because this is not the software rendering anymore. This is the replacement. I have replaced every polygon drawing. The letter drawing, you see there is a start and a quit, but they don't have colors. I've replaced them with cell rendering. Now the points in the back just draw to the 3DO video RAM, but it's not at the earliest anymore. It's not who pixel. I simplified it. And now here finally, this is the cell emulation, of course. Wait. I finally, there are two rings there. This is the Visual Studio for that just emulates the cell renderer. Now I'm looking it at 50 frames and not 60, so it looks jerky or whatever. And I finally managed to also emulate the sprite, the 3D meshes to render them with cells. Now this one, you see there is also no energy bar because I also have to implement. I commented out the code that software rendered. Now the fonts are using my regular, the thing I use on the frame counter. However, this is not rendering the nice scanline per scanline different color font, but I can change that. I can change the bitmap and then use the palette for the different colors. Now everything is rendered with cell, nothing is rendered with software. The only software rendering thing is those particles, which I could replace with cell and even put some little blobs. But now these are just a placement with the very simple software rendering of few points. Now you see this one, it's not fully rendered because my meshes are still having pentagon, hexagon, octagon, every Nigon. It's way over a quad, triangle or quad. My software render for flat shading polygons, at least. And I just need to convert this object. Those for this should be easy. I just left it. Now I see they are not very sub-pixel accurate. But maybe, okay, maybe on the 3D, or maybe I don't do good sub-pixel accurate rendering on my cell renderer. But this works. And the last thing I did, okay, previously I went to tile 3D. I have also removed any old software rendering code. There is no error. There used to be a lot of things here. I had the fonts.cpp, fonts.h. I kinda remove things that I don't need for the 3D version. I used to have an error underscore line for line rendering, but it was doing at the earliest line, and if you see here, I just have removed it. It's like a to do thing. Now, okay, the dots are getting the RAM buffer from the 3DO this time. I'm just putting some white dots, I guess. And I'm doing this offset thing from the 3DO with a zigzag video RAM. It can be replaced with cells, with a list of cells. But I found that if I'm rendering single dots, it's not slower. Sometimes it's slightly faster because on Bizarre Undergroup for the stars, that's what I use. But if I replace them with little spherical blobs, it might even look cooler. And I added a bit of blood, maybe very tiny, 2-3 pixels in width. I'll think about it. But now it's just a placeholder. I've done some things. And now here, if you, I call it 3DO, draw rectangle 3. There's nothing else. There's only draw rectangle 3DO. This could be draw rectangle at this point. I used to have a draw rectangle that was doing the regular. I have the whole mechanism where I collect things. Current tile cell tops, index tile cell tops. This is a big array. I have some max. Now for the top rectangles, the vectors I need to change are simpler. I don't need to change everything because they are just the rectangles on top. They are not any arbitrary polygons, so you don't need to change every vector. And at the end of this is rendering one layer. No, those four are the sides, the polygons on the sides. This is about the map only, by the way, not the enemies or the spaceship. This is the map polygons. And then I also render the top. Draw tile map quads. Ah yeah, no, those are the sides, the four sides. And then I do that tile cell tops, while here is the tile cell sides. So this is gonna, every time you call it's gonna add another one in the list, and finally it's gonna render, enable the last, disable the last. So I have the same pattern so that I do one draw call for a lot of things. But that works layer per layer, and there are 4 layers, so there are 8 draw calls, cells called, and that's okay. So for my engine, the meshes are rendered by the engine. You end up to render mesh polys. I have this sorting thing. This can be improved for the 3DO to get more performance. Because I can see how I wrote it on the 3DO, because here I have these Z buckets. It's just a bit of too much work now. And I was storing some poly indices. It's like some sorting Z buckets thing. Now on the 3DO, on my older engines, I had the CCB pointer. The CCB pointer was here, and the link to the next was, I was doing linked list for every different Z range. So it was not, while here I have to get the stuff back and create the cells. Now I would have to create the cell vectors anyway, but it's a bit of an extra step. So there is a probability for improvement. and I finally go to draw poly. This is rendering back to fourth based on this set. And now, okay, the draw poly now is not on the engine CPP, is on the air poly, and it used to be. You see now there is nothing. There used to be a lot of code. If you go to the DOS project and you open air poly, you used to have prepaid scan lines flat. There was the software renderer. The scan lines, fill scan lines, maybe this one. Going left to right. I have some other cool stuff I never used, like attempt to do and delete. I could show you that on the DOS side. There are things I haven't showed you. So anyway, now because we are just using this, I decided on the 3D, let's remove some code, let's clear now. Now it's just a draw poly. We'll get the points, P0, 1, 2, 3. Now, the thing I did is, the old engine was having edges none, and you could have 4, 5, 6, 7 edges. And I would literally loop over every edge, and I was going -1 because I say I to I plus 1, 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and the last one would be the last one, so 7 to 0, so that it loops around, and this will fill every edges, will walk over every edges vertically, and fill the left-right scan line ends, so that later I can call, okay, now fill the scan lines from my left-right edge map. But this would work especially for flat shaded, that you don't need to interpolate things. This would work really well with objects that had n-gons, like pentagons, hexagons, and one of them had. But now, because I was just porting, I was like, ah, damn. Okay. I would have to do some extra work here to subdivide or pre-subdivide in the mesh better, so that I don't subdivide in real time. And it shouldn't be hard. So now it's just, okay, I just did something that works for now, only for triangles and quads. That's why you saw that object breaking. So, and I just copied paste the things I was doing to create the vectors. Now, I have a pre-calculated size. Huh. This is one. Okay, the polygons is using the flat shaded, but this one is called, it's the same, it's a bit of duplicate. It's called from tile 3D for the sides, and I kept that different. This one is called because I know that there are always 4 points. I don't need to have some ends down, like the meshes for the enemy's items and so on, where I'm more free. But this one, I know the map is made by quads, the blocks, and those are for the sides, not the tops. So this one is 4 because I created this very cool you see that I have this texture with a 16 by 16 very smooth texture. I could try some other stuff. So where I'm creating this one, yeah, you can do some stupid thing, but it's gonna break the colors. Yeah, on top, because I'm taking the color and I'm adding something depending, I want to shade the sides, so I'm adding something to the index of the palette and not clumping. So the higher ones. Now I should replace that with some real text, some marble texture or something. Now that would be interesting. But also if I go here and I say, you know, I don't want the 4x4, I want the 2x2. No, 4x4, sorry, 4 bits. So 16 by 16. 2x2 is 4 bits. I'm gonna get this very low 4x4 text. However, this could be a bit lighter on the 3D side. And even of my look, this is how fast I can render on top. But if I say that, you know what, I want a 6x6, like 64 by 64 texture, this is gonna be, it's very hard for the cell render, it's very hard for my emulation. So look how intense, but it's very noisy. So look now, I'm my cell renderer, and that's gonna be a problem with far away, unless I was using some loading. It's gonna die even on the real hardware because all these textures are big. Now I can do some loading. I have an idea that when I look at the, this is something else I will implement. Like here it's necessary that there is some depth and there is some, I can see the sides like real 3D. Here maybe I like this side. But here this is mostly used as a map. Like, okay, I want to see the whole area. I want to see where are the next, okay, here is a ring. Let's go get it. But where are the other rings? Oh, there is the ring. This is more like a map. And I think in that size, because you can't see much the depth. I mean, now you might be able to see it. I could literally pre-generate for the whole thing a pixel per pixel texture. It's not gonna be so big, it's gonna be smaller, and then I will scale up and match, and it will be the map of the game. And this is gonna be one cell render, so this thing is gonna run much faster. Now see, even in my render, wait, here I'm running very fast, but here it's running like 100 frames. Because all of these are cells and they have to read from the 16 by 16 texture and go through my cell rendering emulation pipeline. And the funny thing is, the original software rendering here on the Visual Studio project on this PC goes faster, goes like 400 frames per second or something like that at this scale. Because it was a direct polygon render, it wasn't emulating the cell render for every little block is now an individual cell that it has to be rendered through the complex pipeline. Read every texture, create the textile areas. So it was interesting that the software rendering here was way faster in this top-down view. But I will do it with a map anyway, this one. Anyway, I concentrated so much on this. I was explaining things. So everything is rendered with cell. There used to be a draw cell, it doesn't exist. See, the draw bar is, this used to render in the software render in the video RAM on the VGA. I commented it out and I will also replace it with the cell. These are the zoom texts when you game over, you win and so on. I can easily get the draw text and scale the... Now this is using my tools draw zoom text, and it's using my text cell CCB and so on. And I think I have a zoom here, I could use it. But the thing is, I'm going to manipulate this to be able to have a more colorful scanline per scanline version. so that I emulate what the original game did. Because right now it's plain white. Easy, easy. So, there's more. Okay, very few things. I also tried to optimize when I zoomed out that there were many entities. Oh, I'm gonna show you something. Of course, this is on the PC, on the modern PC. Okay, this is not gonna work fast on. Oh, this could be slower because of the cell renderer with too many polygons. We will see. So you can go how much the engine scale. I can change the number of enemies. I was trying it on DOS also with many cycles on DOSBox. Yes. And I have all these enemies and I'm still running. I'm still running pretty good. I mean, this is on PC. It's just how much it scales. Let's put 4096. Okay, that's too much. First of all, I'm gonna die immediately. Okay, of course this slows. Where are the 4096? Oh, I changed. Ah, wait, that should. I must have done something. Yesterday I was testing it. That's not 1024. Oh, I know. I have a limitation on the cell numbers. I'm gonna show you this in DOS. It's better to show you. But even then it scales. That worked very well in the software renderer. And then I put fast forward. Now you haven't seen the crazy stuff. I'm gonna show you that later. So let's see if we can build the 3D version. Let's see how the actual 3D works. It's still not 60 frames, but it's better than the software render. It's 30-25 at worst, 30-35 or at the top-down view. Of course, it goes like 16 frames, maybe 13, and that makes sense. So the stars are still software render, of course, but we still get. But the polygons here, of course, the polygons are broken again. I have to see. I'm using the cell. So this is how it is on the. I have disabled the VSync so that you can see the speed. In this level, I got the audio. Maybe put the audio very low. So this is the more complex now, and I have 100% accounting for cell cycles. If you put ignore, this goes higher, of course. Now this is gonna be slow, a bit slower on 3D. Now Phoenix is the most accurate, especially with CPU. Although still not fully, but if you see 70, I think I tried it, and I was seeing 60 or 55 here. Now if you zoom out, it's gonna drop, of course. That's both cell and CPU, and also that I'm using the 16 by 16 texture for all these blocks, but all these blocks are individual cells. There might be few hundreds, but it's going somewhere. It's still over 30. So if I press select, now I have V-synced and it's at 30, stable 30. Okay, it drops under. It's not very stable. If this in this second, it seems not very smooth. It's more smooth on. It's gonna drop under here. No. Okay, let's remove the V-sync. And of course in this level it's gonna be slow, but I'm gonna make the single map texture instead of rendering everything, which will be make things pretty fast and pretty cool. Every block will be a single pixel and then I will stretch it. Now there are 4 layers. I go to the 4 layers, of course. Pre-generate 4 layers, compress textures, because there's a lot of empty space in it. And no texture, just single color. That would be cool. But this is better. The software render couldn't even get, in this one couldn't even get, you could get 30 maybe. I remember that the software renderer here would get 19, 20, maybe here it would get 15. So it's going somewhere. Everything is cell rendered. Only the particles are software rendered on the video RAM of 3DO. The one with the zigzag, not non-linear addressing. It's getting pretty nice. But there are still a lot of things to fix. So let's go to, I forgot to say that I was putting a lot of objects and realized there were some issues, and I tried to micro optimize certain things. For example, they didn't improve as much as I wanted. For example, I'm using, this is a reciprocal. I don't know why it says the readable size is 131.0. That's, yeah. Ah, that's why. Okay, I see. You're right. You're right. You're right. So this is a fixed point reciprocal. I used to make a division, but I replaced it. That's one optimization. But this is for every single mesh. So if I have many enemies, but because there are very few enemies, it wasn't as important. But it's for every vertex point for every enemy. That was kinda. It gave me, in the top-down view where I see everything, gave me 1 frame. Like from 12 it went to 13. I went from 11 to 13. The other thing is now I used to, every mesh I render, I have at least to create the matrix, because the rotation of the object changed, and while it's fixed point, I have to multiply. I have to do enough multiplies and shifts, of course. And then I realize most objects, they don't need 3 rotation. You can just do X and Y, and the effect of the object rotating in random ways is still, you don't need the Z rotation there. So I created a simpler matrix. I didn't gain as much as I wanted. Now, for PC, I'm not even multiplying with this matrix. I'm just getting the rotation axis and I'm using them in a different way. This is a trick on the 386 to not do it with mules. So I never multiply every vertex of a mesh with the matrix. I do something else with the pre-generated grid axis with very low points. However, I wonder if on the 3DO, going for the hardware matrix, it will end up being faster. And I have the transform grid mesh. This is the one that does the trick. So it's kind of hard to explain, but I have explained it before. I still okay, this is the old one. However, if I use this old one now, things will go wrong because the dimensions might be different. I have to see it. So I kept the old one. This was the traditional that would be multiplying by the matrix 9 multiplication for the rotation. Now on the PC, okay, I'm using this one, but on the 3DO I still use this one, which reads a lot of memory values and just does addition, but it has to read from memory one read and then another read. So I have a guess that on 3DO, because we have the hardware matrix, I could go through this path so I end up in this path. There is something on the mesh that says this is based on this trick with the grid points, and it's not a real, you don't need to do a real matrix multiplication anymore. We only need to calculate the original matrix. And you see, every mesh, that's the thing, every mesh, if you have too many enemies, that would be taxing, that I have to calculate a different matrix for each one. Now I could cast different matrices, but the rotation change, it's gonna be a lot. At the end of the day, I switched from this to that for many items, and it didn't seem to have improved almost at all. So maybe it's not as important. But I can, on the 3DO, I can see if I can go for this path and replace the matrix with the hardware matrix, and maybe that will be better than reading the memory values for the 3DO side. Anyway, and there was some other bug with the Z sorting that was crippling the game from far distance of too many objects. But anyway, and the way I found them, okay, I'm gonna show you the. It might be better to show you on. Oh, wait a minute. Why? First of all, I have it already opened here. Maybe the sound is too loud, I don't know. So that's the PC. So we have 131072 cycles, which is like somewhere here. AMD KX 200 MHz. Sorry. So if I run it like that, you see the frame rate here. Now this is DOSBox, it's not real. And here is the fun. I did the same optimization there with if you have too many objects, to use the XY rotation matrix, not the XYZ. Do the reciprocal multiplication with the table to avoid the divisions. Those gained a bit if I fill the. Let's go with the rings first. I'm gonna put 1024. This is so cool. It's so cool how the engine scales. We have rings everywhere. $24, $23. So I remember when I did these optimizations for many objects, before the frame rate was 22, 21, 22, or maybe it was 22 and sometimes jumping 20 to 23, and now it's 24, 23, 24, 25, 23. So there wasn't much because most of the time is spent in other. It's nice, there is no reason to, because every individual object has its own rotation. Even if, I guess here the rotation is the same, I could make one matrix. The offset is, I just have, okay, get this object, add the time to the rotation and call the calculate rota matrix and then use it with my method. That was a bit too fast. And this is so crazy, man. Look at this now. Apparently this is so slow for... But the cool thing is that it's possible. There are just so many things here. It scales up fantastically. And even, the NARC. Now, we haven't seen that on the 3DO because I realized I have a limitation for how many cells in my CCB cell array. And that's why when I was putting over 256, I was still getting the same number. Let me hide here, let me hide. No. And they all bounce, okay. Now here's the thing, from what I remember, everything that is outside the bounce, so here it has to transform and render everything, but here much less enemies have it. I have an easy way to know if an enemy is immediately out of the screen, so that I don't even do the transformation, I don't even do the rendering, I don't even do anything. However, the movement, the bouncing, the collision detection still happens for the outside. So when I open it, more things are, everything that enters the screen area. I have a way before even having to transform and rotate and render any vertex. Just by, not even by the bounding box, but everything moves in a tile, and I can get the tile. I think that's how I did it. The tile, and I can see if it's inside or outside the tile extends, based on my zoom level. So even if things are not rendering, everything is moving, bouncing, the walls, checking for collision with the environment. It is amazing. You could go, this is, or maybe put that. Maybe put a lot of shields and put a lot of things and some energy. Why not? Now, would it be okay to maybe put that, some crazy Pentium 3 side? DOS boxes. That's Mendel, isn't that Mendel? That's so cool, man. How much the engine scales. Oh my god. And I have this whole thing where I put and I say, okay, the final num things are, it's like, so if I put things, the num things are something. And I'm having an array of more things, whatever it is. The other thing that scales is, of course, on tile 3D. I must have shown that on the, I can change the tile height. Must have shown a preview on the 3DO side. And the blocks are taller, so that you see more crazy perspective. Of course, on the software render, if you put something like that, if you make the heights very tall, I have very nice parameters here, but if you do that, actually run it without, run it with this thing. Oh, they are very tall, very tall. However, if I go here, it goes over Z, in negative Z. And I thought it should crash, but it doesn't. And the other thing I can scale it is that you can put 8 layer, 16 layer, however, this might not do something because I need to generate something. And I haven't generated more than, it might even crash now. But I have tested it before, I could make more layers. Ah, the colors became darker because I'm scaled based on the layers divided by the full. Interesting. So yeah, technically, you know, I have to open my map data and oh yeah, yeah. Nice, nice. So that's not ready, but it's almost ready. Yeah, technically, you can change the tile map with height and create different sizes. It's really cool. So a lot of more interesting. I could make taller buildings, make some Grand Theft Auto thing. I was thinking that even in those, I could do some texture mapping, and then I wanna discuss it. The funny thing is, because the perspective is always top, so you either have this view. I don't need to use a generic texture map. This view could be a scale 2D bitmap. I just need to inside to do some 2D interpolation that is more simple. I can go scanline per scanline and only interpolate one. I could do specialized version. Those sides, you have those sides, but also you could have depending of the inclination, or you can have this side. Now in this side, if I walk scanline per scanline right now and I have a texture, I only need to interpolate U coordinate. Also vertically, I could scanline per scanline calculate perspective correct texture mapping only once per scanline. Just like doing with the vertical walls, that because the walls are vertical. Now here, if I went scanline per scanline, that wouldn't work. So I could write a different render that goes vertically now. It renders vertically. So that again, in the same scanline now you would have to interpolate, you still have to interpolate U coordinate if U goes like this and V goes like that. And U goes like this and V goes like that. But I was thinking in DOS, we are talking about DOS of course, we could make some true, maybe on a, maybe recommended 486 or Pentium, but true top-down full perspective texture map. I could do some Grand Theft Auto buildings or something and put some nice texture. And my renderer, instead of going for a generic texture mapping polygon render, it's gonna have specific one for those sides and one for this, and then the caps. Also, if the caps at some zoom level happen to be specific scales, I could do some recalculations. I could make it that the layer 0 in the ground happens to be exactly 1 pixel scale, so that it's just a copy of a bitmap that I will scroll, and then the others are gonna have higher scales, and then I would have to do some pixel sampling and only interpolate one coordinate, one texture coordinate per pixel, and vertically another. I'm very excited about this idea, like how restricting the view in this top is simplifying things. And finally, okay, I'm gonna show you something, because I'm doing some big changes in this one. I was in the cafeteria and I was doing such, okay, there are no. Now, the problem is that if I run this in, I'm gonna keep it that big. If I run this, now this is so big because I changed the desktop scale to 200. So let's run it on this one. Oh, wait, I didn't. No, you know what, let's go like that. I didn't rebuild after the crash, so it's running the one with the 32 layers. That's why it's so slow. Okay, now I'm going to run it on this one. This is already slower. Now the frame rate is there. Let's run it with that. This is without VSync. So it's not a real frame rate. Now when you rub, it's going. Because we are in DOS, but again, you could kinda play. The thing is, some of my physics is not tied to the time. This is something I have to correct, but there is something else I noticed. But you only notice it if the frame rate is slow. Okay, let's bounce. You even notice it here. If I bounce, there is a force back, and I should be able to rotate. There is also velocity from my thrust. Get that. So if I bounce, it has to go. I bounce like this, it has to go like this. But if I rotate, it moves. And you might see if I make it slower, because I'm updating the physics slower, that's not how I should do it. But there is another problem. I bounce, oh, I just rotate and I stop thrusting even. Why does it move up? It's very weird. Also, when you move, you stop thrusting, you move. I can't explain. It's kinda hard to get stuff sometimes. Because I did something. So when I bounce here and go here, there is momentum, of course. There is loss of momentum. So it should bounce a bit here and then stop, but it shouldn't affect. If I rotate, it shouldn't go to the direction. It should go to the direction to the bounce. Now it goes to the direction of where I'm rotating, and I realized the reason. Like, that shouldn't happen. And the reason is because in the old codes, which was here, I used to call this input 3D, whatever. I have the player thrust, I have X and Y, I didn't even have a VEC2. Now I had a VEC3, but I should do a VEC2 for this thing. So when you press up and down, I increase the player thrust till I reach a thrust max. On backwards it's half of it. You are going backwards, it goes kinda slower, like a car. And I'm getting the movement now. I use that on the movement. There are places where I use the time difference. There are places I don't. This thrust I'm plus minus minus. I'm not using it. I have to change this thing. I have to have some thrust bits because if I do this on integer I pixel move, it's kinda hard. I had to make them fixed point to make them more smooth and easier to degrade by time and so on. And then my move X is based on the sine cosine of the player angle. So the movement from the thrust is that. And I'm adding this movement. See, that's fine. That seems okay. And then I do it I break it into two because I have to check separate collisions. So if I bounce on vertical or on horizontal wall, the thrust X and the thrust Y would be affected depending on where I bounce. So I do a movement horizontally. I see if I collide, and then if I collide, I put the horizontal position back to the previous player position X, and here back to the previous. So I broke it into two. Of course, there are better ways to write. I have the player sound, player bounce, and so on. Anyway, and Now what happens if I collide? I reverse the player's thrust, the horizontal, so it's a back bounce on X. And the vertical thrust is, you know, if I collide like this, that would be reversed, but not the other. The vertical will still continue. And then I do the same for the Y. The problem though is that this is not a, this is, am I using the thrust as a velocity? The thrust should add to the velocity. Because now I bounce the thrust back, and in the next iteration I'm gonna use this thrust to get a momentum, and I'm gonna use the player angle. So the bounce, instead of being constant, the bounce will be affected by the player angle because the bounce affects the thrust. But the bounce should be a separate thing affecting the total player velocity. The thrust should add to the velocity. But of course, I have refined everything here to work in a nice way. And now I'm gonna run that once again. I want to show you what I can do now. So now, first of all, outside of the bounce, I rotate like a car. Now if I mean, it's still, if I stopped thrusting, there is a loss of, there is a place where I gradually reduce the, I try to remember the word, not momentum, but I always forget this word. Inertia. So when I move, if I stop thrusting, it stops, but it gradually stops. And also if you bounce, and I stop thrusting, that's what I wanted. I didn't want to instantly stop. But also I can rotate around like this. Whee, whee. Because I'm turning the angle and the thrust is contributing to the angle, which is what it should happen. But you have the issue that even here, if you, when I bounce and then rotate, I shouldn't move to the right. But you see that I can rotate like this. Now I'm gonna do something. I changed this code yesterday and I didn't like it, and I have to do it. I just broke it. And let me see a bit. Okay. And I'm gonna finish with today for that. So here's the thing. I was trying to fix that. It wasn't as easy. I could scale down the pixels, but it's okay, it's better to see it in full. Even the previous one, I should have run it in full. So it works the same, okay. Now here's the thing. I'm gonna move, I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna rotate. Woo. So now I bounce, and I rotate, and it's okay. But here's the thing. Remember that I was pressing thrust and forward. I cannot do that. It doesn't work like a car anymore. It's just it's like sliding on ice. It's a different. It's not what I wanted, and I was a bit confused. I was like, yeah, I did this, but it's different. It's not the way it used to be, and I didn't like it. And I deleted my code twice, and then I was doing it again. But I said that's the correct thing, but it's moving on ice. But this is more like a hovercraft that moves on ice, and it doesn't have a rotational force or something. It's not like a car anymore. However, we have a spaceship. And here is my thought. It's different, but I have a dilemma what to use. The cool thing is you can go woo, wee. It's kinda fun to boing, but it's not the thing. And then I made a decision that I did this. There used to be a game input in game. Now it's not called input 3D, it's called update. I did some refactoring. This is only for the map, to show or hide the map. Now, if you are dead or there is warping, I don't want you to be able to create the inputs. Now, I guess this does the update and returns if it collided, so that I can play the sound. I'm gonna do it different. The thing is, there was a big section here. I mean, here from below. This update was enormous, and I thought of something. So now I have, and I'm gonna refactor that more. I added G input 1. I have G inputs. And the new logic is here. Now, there is no player thrust X and Y. I had player thrust X and Y. First of all, I should use a vec2. Now this has vec3. I'm gonna make a vec2. It should be better, I guess. But because it was just for the player, it wasn't for every object. But I think I have a lot of other objects moving that they don't need this. I mean, you might need the vertical Z if I make jumping going to the higher layers in the future. So now it's player thrust. I changed a lot. I rewrote things. I have this. I didn't used to have that. It's different. I found different thresholds because when I rewrote this, nothing works. Nothing worked the way I have to. Previously, I have tweaked it to work because I used to say. Now I'm saying if button is up, player thrust is that. I used to say player thrust plus plus, increase player thrust, because I was increasing the velocity. But now I have to have positive negative thrust in a constant, else it's zero. I'm getting the movement based on t, and I have a player velocity. This is new, and I'm adding to the player velocity, and this is added to the player angle, based on the player angle, the player velocity. Now I'm clamping this one to some min max, and I'm colliding. This is calling a function on game, and now I have to just say collided true and return, and so that the game updates the sound and does other things. And I'm negating the velocity like I used to negate the thrust. Now I'm negating the velocity. For X and Y, the same. Okay, position is previous player position. So I change the logic. If there is thrust, I call spawn particles, and I use this thing that for the inertia. So there is momentum. I don't make the velocity to be 0. If there is velocity, I keep it, and there is every frame I'm just reducing it till it reaches over or under something, and then it goes to 0. So this is more complete as a model. However, it totally changes the way the game works. You cannot rotate nicely like a vehicle before. So here's the idea I had. I'm gonna keep it. I'm gonna revert the other version. I name this G input 1. I'm gonna have different control sims. I'm going to have G input 0, the old one. More like car. I could reduce that bounce. I could make, okay, you bounce a very tiny bit and you stay here. And I started, because of these issues I have as dilemma, I have new ideas. This is one other thing I wanted to do. Tank. I wanted to have a tank, arrows to move. I don't know. Was to move cannon. And maybe I can make something else. It could be helicopter. I think I would like to do human with shotgun. And I'm gonna make, when you start a new game, you can select between four different kinds. So, and this started because of an accident, because I noticed that I don't like the bouncing that it follows. I thought again, I said, no, you need velocity and thrust with that, but then I realized that changed the way it works though. It's good, but it changed the movement. Then I thought, I like both of them. And I thought, why don't you make four different kinds, and when you start a new game, this is gonna be more exciting. You can select the type of vehicle you want to play. That would be really fun. And maybe the tank is slow, but the tank will have more defense. The player will roll like Dark Souls. I don't know. Uh, Different weapons, not just laser. I would have a weapon CPP instead of having everything on the game. Also, the big idea that I might want to implement in the future: 2, 3, 4 split screen network play. Old school DOS. See how Doom connects my various PCs. Now that's just something I would like to do something different at some point. Maybe that's unrealistic because I never done networking, but this one is something that could be fun. Cooperative or multiplayer. Now that would be more maps. Hold on. I'm just, I'm just dreaming. But because of that dilemma, because of that problem I had, I wrote something yesterday and I deleted it. And then I went to cafeteria and thought again. I wrote the same thing, but a bit better. And then I realized, yeah. Now you can make some rotational inertia or something. I could watch some videos from. So maybe the hovercraft could still work if I. But no, I thought make 4 different control schemes and 4 different movement logics depending on the vehicle, and make a 4 player thing, and you can select from 4 different things in a nice screen. This would be amazing. So I decided, you know what, I keep it. I will revert the old version but stick it to G input 0, and then I can do G input 2 and G input 3, and you can select that. I think I should finish the video. Last but not least, I was doing something else. I have this makefile here. This is a DJGPP makefile. But it was a pain to make it build. I always build with Wattcom because it was easier and nicer. And I can run Wattcom on a 386 and compile fast enough, while DJ is much slower. But I decided that I should build it, and I have the old ones. Astropatank W is the so that gets. Of course, this is DOSBox, so it's not the representative, but even in the real hardware, I saw that there was a difference. This goes getting 300 frames, but this one, no music though. This one is getting 345 up here. I went from 15, 16 frames on the 386 to 18 frames, from 16 to 18 frames from the top view. So it can be worth it, but DJGPP is a bit of a pain on the ass, and it took me a whole week to do things like DJ. Not this one, of course. I had to be. If DJGPP this sells that, if DJGPP, because this is the inline assembly. However, on Wattcom, for those in the route calls, I could do some similar command, but there were other places. I don't know if I can find them. So I saved it, if not the DJGPP, define sound, or because right now the mouse play, I don't know if I can build it for DJ, if I can use it as is. I haven't seen the timer, man. You have this different DPMI stuff, man. It was such a pain, and it's not. I have commented out things. It's not correct. It's not regaining the old timer correct. Oh my god. The beeper sound. Okay, just include a different thing. It ends up that I use the output they exist in a different header file depending. So maybe also the int. I don't need to have everywhere. Oh my god, was it in main? Here's the thing. I was pulling my hair. You have the VGA board. These are with the old. These are pointing to the 64. under 640. Actually, this is always under the 1 megabyte. The VGA point, the time point. This one I don't use that anymore. This was the old where you can get the old timer, the 18.2 hertz. And in DJGPP you have to do you have to add to the DJGPP conventional base. I don't know, you have to do something else it would crash. It wouldn't even work. And I forgot about it and I was finding some code to know the how much free memory you have to use this DPMI free, and I got that code from somewhere. You need to do this. It's just a pain to port. That's why initially when I started this, I have done it in the past, but then when I started, I'm gonna use Wacom, I don't care. And there might be a slight advantage unless you write everything in assembly, I guess. Now, and I also had some other issues that initially my first DJGPP build was way slower and I couldn't understand why, but there was some serious reason that I cannot maybe I should finish this video. This is something to talk in another video. But anyway, so now, oh yeah, the polygon, the drawing, the rectangle drawing in assembly. And now I have a DJGPP version because some things are different. The way the arguments are passed here they are passed in EAX, EDX, EBX6. Here now I kept the old one, but no, it's EBP. Why do I keep this? Because I had to replace the old ones with the EBP stuff. So here I'm getting from EBP, from the stack, and I think I needed to do more. I do push a popa, but on it DJGPP I had to do something like this, move ESP to EBP, and then again I looked at all the source code, I searched again. It took me a while to port the assembly polygon drawing, and now I have two different ones. Even in Wacom you have to, your function has to be function underscore. In DJGPP it has to be underscore function so that the linker will see it. Who knows what else? To make it work, it was a bit of a pain. I had an issue where so here is the thing. In DJGPP, normally because I wanted to, I target 386. I was building for 386, but 386, the memset and memcopy, which I used to copy the frame buffer, is not doing 32 bits. It's doing 8 bits. Something is wrong. Maybe they never implemented. And I had this problem in the past. And I go to on the Pentium with this build, and the Pentium can, with my PCI card, could do 450 frames per second to copy a frame buffer. But I was running this with vsync off and I was getting 100. On Wacom I was getting 350, 400 because of the rendering of the extra stuff that happened, of course. But I was like 4 times slower. On the 386 I was getting like 12 frames per second instead of 30 in the starting screen, and with the stars and the letters, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is it so slow? And one thing was that, but it wasn't only that. Man, there is something else. I still was getting on DJGPP. Yeah, because now with 486 build, the memset and the memcopy are the correct, the optimized ones on DJGPP. And also, even if I run it on 386 with this one, it still works on 386. Maybe it doesn't use, so you can build it for 486, it might still work on 386. It happens to not use any special 486 instruction, I guess. Now, the alternative is to keep that and implement my own mem copy and mem set for this case. But man, because I have a back buffer, software back buffer that I copy. I have my whole screen and I clear it with a full mem set and a full mem copy to the video RAM for this one. And that's not a problem in Wacom. In Wacom I say okay, build for 386. But that wasn't the case. The original timer, which I got from some tutorial, the original timer, I was at 1000 Hz. Why? Because you know modern if you make a modern game, usually you say I want that still at least a 1000 millisecond 1 millisecond timer, 1000 millisecond per second. I want 1000 hertz per second. And that's very common. You wouldn't put something very low like that. However, I found out that that wasn't common on a 386. This is a lot of interrupt calls, especially DJGPP is gonna use this some DPMI stuff that could be more costly. And also, I used to call the old timer interrupt, but that's done different in DJGPP. The thing is, if you replace your new timer interrupt on the old DOS timer interrupt, you kinda have to still call the old timer interrupt so that the time of the system doesn't stay back. It was even worse because I was doing 1000 iterations and I was also calling the old DOS timer interrupt, but it was calling way more. And that was a mistake because I was calling it 1000 times while it should be called less time. And there was this old code that I found that is suppose it adds this. Where is it? Okay, somewhere I don't have it. I think there was a place. I have removed it. I don't do it anymore. There was a place where you would do, I don't remember, you would do something like that. So every time you would add in your interrupt 10 points till it reaches. No, you do it here. You subtract 10. If it's under 0, you add 180, so it goes to 180. This is so that in your 1000 you still for that you still call old timer so that you update the old clock. Now the reason I comment it out is because I realized because I've changed the mouse play in some way, and the way I changed the music play, which is the external library, is that where do I connect the player? Sound on. Stop mouse play. Oh, I'm in game. No, I should have made another video for that, but why not just talk? I just like to talk about it. Now this is gonna capture the DOS timer. And then I'm capturing where is it? I'm gonna capture, let's see the non-DJGPP, the old DOS timer interrupt. I'm gonna set my new timer. Now but the old DOS timer interrupt now is the mouse play. Now the mouse play has done the same, so it does update the timer. It does update the timer of the system. You don't need to do that this thing anymore because the and I tested it because the mouse play now has done the same. Else the mouse play, if you run it, would be also bad. These guys know what they are doing better than I do, and they update. So finally, I don't need this anymore. I don't need to update the old DOS timer in the RAM myself. No, I don't need to update it every few times for the timer. I call this every time, and the mouse timer knows when to play music, when to update the old DOS timer. And I'm doing something similar here for the DJGPP. However, in case of DJGPP, I would have to do that, but that didn't work, it crashed, and there were some other DPMI things to grab the old DOS timer function pointer and call it, but last time it crashed, and I thought if I manage to implement the mouse play to also work for DJGPP, I won't have to do that, so I commented out that for now, and I only use that to just check for if DJGPP improves performance. But I'm still shipping the game as a Wacom thing, so that the mouse play and everything is correct. And I keep this for the future. Anyway, back in the past I did a mistake, and I was having 1,000 times. I was calling the old those time because this didn't work. I was calling this 1,000 times, which is calling the mouse play, the timer, whatever. But now there is no mouse play. It was wrong. And that's another reason why on 386 it was dying. It was going 10 frames per second. Even after I fixed the thing with the memcell, it went from 9 frames to 16 frames, but not 30. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because I was calling 1,000 times in the RAM. Those CWSDB might be slower. And then I figure out something else that in the old time, and I have to say I figure out by conversing a lot with ChatGPT and Grok and asking them what the hell is going on, why is this, and they were telling me information about things, and they say back in the times games were using 70 Hz, 140, 100, 140. They were using times like that. Now 70 Hz because the VGA is updating 70 Hz. I thought I actually tried 50 out of curiosity, but the frame rate was jerky because the timer was so low that I couldn't get the proper time difference. And then I thought 70 was okay. I thought I'm going for 140. I'm going for twice the VBL refresh, and that worked really well. And it was lighter, and even the Wacom version. Even the Wacom version gained 1 or 2 frames, like in the starting frames from 32 FPS to 34, 35, something like that. Because I was recording, and that's something good to know about old school stuff. That games back in the times they wouldn't say, okay, I need a very high resolution time. This is something from modern game development. In modern game development, you expect an SDL GetX to give you at least 1,000, if not 1 million or something. You expect people say, yeah, I need, but in all games you have things like that. And also, if you look at mouse play, maybe we can see that. You did see the default was 140. You have the 18.2. Now that's very low. You don't want that. The thing is, I use the same that I also use on my timer, so that I call update sound once. I guess if I use that one, I would use something like that. I could put this one inside. I could remove this one, put that, so that it roughly updates. I tried it actually, and the sound became a bit jerky. It was corrupting a bit the sound. So I used that one, which is the default. And you see, they have facilities for this one, this one. Do you want to use a high resolution timer for whatever? And it says that this is in 70 Hz. Real-time clock periodic interrupt. This is a different. Now we use that one in the, even the oldest timer is this one. The original is this one, and you can set it up on this one, which obviously we do, because this one I found this code from a tutorial, but we also use it on our Pentium demo, so I have seen it there. That is the thing you divide, which is also has to do something with the beeper sound, as we have seen. And you change some values in the pit, low byte, high byte divisor. Yeah, I have to admit now those are very simple to understand, but I have to admit that I found some code from I searched for how to make some proper timer. I got some blogger post from someone trying to do the same, but I do understand what this thing does roughly, so that's okay. But much later, the original tutorial had you need a good timer, but maybe especially if you do things for 386 or lower, maybe it's good to lower that a bit. And this is a nice value I like. And you even see the beeper sound. I do it once every 2 times, because even the original it was updating at 70 Hz after every frame, which is cool. I could update my physics here if I wanted, unless I do it based on the time difference, everything based on time difference, because maybe it would be too much and it could be a bit of a pain to move things. So that's interesting, but the good thing is if you use the mouse play, you have some good options here. And I'm fine with this one. So this is going very well. I was fighting with DJGPP and all these issues for a week before I started doing other things. I want to clean up. Okay, nothing. And I'll finish the video now. And I know this is very long, but at least I like to show some things in general. There are so many things I want to talk about. No real coding, just talking about progress and things I discovered through the process. And that's it from me. Bye!